Magazine. This month's article is about the 3 ways to make creative editing easier. So now that wedding season has leveled off and slowed down, it's time to fix bad workflows in Lightroom Classic. Whether it's bad habits, things are slowing down, you need to get faster at editing, you need to be more efficient, you want to keep quality in check. But with some of these new tools and old tools that are underutilized in Lightroom Classic, you can definitely be editing faster. So I want to make sure, speaking from an entrepreneur perspective, your time is always better spent doing anything but editing, sitting at the computer, right? You make your money shooting, marketing, selling your pictures to your clients, right? I don't have to tell you that. You understand that process. But if you're sitting at the computer, if you're editing yourself, it makes sense to do that as fast as possible so you can spend time doing anything else, whether that's making more money for your business or spending more time doing anything but working, right? So this is why I want to show you the 3 ways to make creative editing easier. Because in the end, I want to show you on how to take an image like this, and the end results are this. The majority of what I've done here to take this image in here is all done in Lightroom, all done rather quickly. So the first thing that I'm doing is I'm applying a custom profile. So many of you might be using Adobe Color, Adobe Standard, Camera Standard, Adobe Portrait, whatever it is. I'm gonna show you how to make custom profiles and why they're important. Then I'm also gonna show you the masking tool. So a lot of what I'm doing here, right, is burning that background down. I'm dodging the client so we can get the customer directly focused on the subjects, right? You want to make sure you're taking the viewer and keeping the eye on the subjects, not this beautiful background, the sun pouring through, right? This perfectly lit scene. We want to be focused on them. So it becomes very important. Then taking those masks, and step number 3, being able to sync those to multiple images instantly, right? That makes editing creatively faster, and it allows you to work way better, way faster than you would be able to in Lightroom. So I'll show you how to do that as well. So let's jump into the first way, which is creating custom profiles. Be creative and make editing easier is using custom profiles. So many of you might be wondering, what's a custom profile? How do I make one? Do I have any? Where do I apply these, right? So in the Develop panel at the very top, you'll have Adobe Color typically selected, maybe even Adobe Standard, or different camera profiles. If you click on Browse for the profile browser, you can choose different profiles. Now many of you, unless you've purchased third-party profiles and installed them, you probably don't have any in your profiles set like I have here, but you have camera matching, Adobe profiles, all these ones that are kind of pre-built and given to you by Adobe. Now user profiles, these are ones that I built myself, right? So a custom profile, what that does, I'm going to choose the a Kodak Portrait one that I made. What it does is it applies kind of an overlay to your image, but it doesn't affect any of your sliders, right? So what's really interesting about that is you can see the difference that it applies without affecting any of your sliders. So like many of us when we're editing, we like to edit based on what needs to be adjusted and not really have, typically with like a preset or something, like if I reset this image, and apply a preset, you're going to see to get a similar effect, I have all these sliders moved all over the place, right? So I have like contrast jacked up to plus 69, black point up to 69. I mean, I have all these things applied to kind of do the same thing. But what I can do is apply a custom profile to achieve a pretty similar effect, apply it to all my images. Now you're probably starting to wonder, I could color correct this file, then apply these custom profiles after, and that's exactly what you'd want to do, right? You could apply them afterwards or apply them before, and it really gives you more flexibility. But think of a custom profile like an overlay, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and make one from a Lightroom preset. What we're also going to do is make one from a Photoshop action and show you both ways on how they work and how to create custom profiles. File would be to use a Lightroom preset. So we have to open our images here into Camera Raw. That's the very important part. You can't create profiles without doing this. So in order to do that, we're going to go ahead and go into the Presets panel, and we're going to apply our Kodak Portrait preset. Now you'll notice if we go back in the Develop settings, we have all these sliders adjusted, right? It's very important. It also has a third-party profile for the Sony camera applied as well. So what we do in order to create a new preset is we're going to hold Option and we're going to click on the Create Preset button. And that opens up a new pop-up box called Create Profile. So this is where we're saving our profile. So wherever we want this profile to save, I already have user profiles created, right? So you can create a new group if you want to, which I think is very helpful. You can put it in profiles as well, but I'm gonna keep mine in user profiles for now. So I'm gonna go ahead and call this Kodak Portra 400, spell Portra correctly, and I'm just gonna call it new. Right, so we can see that it's different. And then you can see the specific settings or developed settings it's going to save and which ones it's not, right? So there's a few adjustments that you probably noticed in here that are missing, like lens correction, calibration's missing from this section, right? So basic panel, camera profile, we have a tone curve applied and some HSL settings. So if you do have a preset that you made and it's using some settings that aren't selected or listed here, they're not going to be included in the profile. Just some things to remember. It's automatically going to make sure, right? We have lookup table. We don't have anything chosen here. We don't have any lookup tables or color lookup tables. That'll come later with the Photoshop actions. And we'll leave the tone map strength on normal. So go ahead and click OK. And that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and click Done. And I'm going to quit out of Photoshop. And what we have to do is we have to relaunch Lightroom. So let's go ahead and quit. We'll hit yes. And then we'll relaunch Lightroom Classic. And our profile should be listed in the profile browser. So I click on Browse and I scroll down here and it is, right? Kodak Portra New. And you see my other Kodak Portra, it's the same one, right? And that's it for applying the Lightroom preset, creating a custom profile, and now having it as a one-click solution that we can actually, right, increase it, decrease it if we want. We actually have a little more flexibility in the amount of that profile as well. No sliders have been adjusted. Profile is going to be with the Photoshop action. So many of those Photoshop users out there are going to be really happy to find out they can take their actions or some of those actions and bring them into Lightroom and apply them with one click. So it allows you to, of course, apply actions to multiple images instantly in Lightroom and see what it looks like before it runs, right? So what you have to do is, or keep in mind, is that only layer adjustments are going to save in this custom profile. So as you see, I don't have any adjustment layers, any image layers that are duplicated, things like high pass that you would use that for, or maybe portraiture that you've duplicated the background layer for. Those are not going to work here, nor would you really want those to be applied. So layer adjustments need to be selected, and then we're going to go up to File and choose Export, Color Lookup Tables. Now, what you have to keep in mind is you want to name in every way the same, you want to name everything the same as your action. So I'm going to call this toning / warm as my description, which is fine. I'm going to keep all of this the same. Now, cube is very important for the format, and we'll see that later. So we'll go ahead and click OK. And now we're choosing where to save this LUT or lookup table, right? So I want to have it save in Documents. I have one in Adobe where I have my LUT save, which is important to remember. So only renaming the beginning, we want to leave the file extension .lut there. We're going to call this toning - warm, just for the namesake. Click Save, right? And it's going to finish that out. Now, what we have to do is we have to open the image into Adobe Camera Raw in order to save the profile. So all we've done so far is export the color lookup table. So I'm going to go ahead and click X, don't save, and I'm going to choose Open Recent so that way we can open up this file again into Adobe Camera Raw. Now we go into the Presets panel, and we're going to hold Option and click on New Preset. And that brings up the Create Profile. So first things first, name toning - warm. I'm going to say this in the user profiles just fine. There's nothing being applied here, right? This tone curve, camera profile, I don't have anything applied to this image. Now what's important is to uncheck look table and check color lookup table, right? Because we saved one called toning warm, that cube file. So I'm going to go ahead and click load, and that's what's going to save in our creative profile, or at least should. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And that's all we need to do. So I'm going to go ahead and click Done. I'm going to quit Photoshop, and I have to relaunch Lightroom. So quit Lightroom. Yes. Relaunch it. And now we should have in our profile browser a fourth profile, and we do. And I have to say, it looks pretty close, right? I think it's good to compare. It looks pretty close to the Photoshop action that we applied earlier. So let's take a look real quick. Go ahead and click open and apply that preset. Well, nope, it's just a warm one. Now this has a little more applied in it as well, so we want to throw these layers out so we can get a true comparison. But I think it's helpful to kind of see side by side what we're working with. Now in here, right, those look pretty close. I mean, the Photoshop one might look a little bit warmer, a little more contrasty, but I mean, you're talking not a night and day difference. I mean, they're pretty close. So I'm gonna go ahead and quit out of Photoshop. Don't save. To show you our different options here, right? And again, right, even a neutral option, right? Warm, I have some different ones. But again, what's really important is that none of the sliders have been touched. So if you have, for instance, if this image was color corrected, let's put this at Adobe Color, just to something like that, and I'm color correcting it, let me add some warmth in there. If this is what I wanted this image to look like, kind of right out of the gate, just doing my color correction, nothing too crazy, right? Now I can go in here on top of that and apply my warm, my neutral custom profile there, and that's the difference, right? Take it from here to here, and we can see you can work on custom profiles after you color correct, which I think is a great way to enhance an image creatively, or you can do it beforehand and tweak the images a bit further. But now let's jump into the second step. There's a lot of stuff packed into custom profiles, but jump into the masking tool so we can burn that background down and dodge our clients. To making creative editing easier is the new masking tool. So what we want to do with this is we want to burn down the background and we want to dodge our clients. Well, normally I'd have to take this into Photoshop. Maybe you could use the subject selection tool there, or just using brushing, using a Wacom tablet. A lot of time wasted to dodge and burn clients. I want to keep this image in Lightroom. I want to keep it super simple, and I want to be able to apply this to multiple images instantly. We can do that. So first things first is we need to click on the masking tool. We're going to do a subject select. So what I like to do is burn down the background first. So what you'll see is it's automatically going to apply our mask or the effect to the clients, but we need to choose the invert button so that way just the background is applied. And then what we're going to do is drop the exposure down half a stop. We're going to raise the black point up to like +10, dehaze to +10, contrast to +10, and I want to warm that background up, right? So I'm even going to take that to 10. I think that all looks good, but we can see instantly what this looks like, right? Turning the masks on and off. It just burns that background down so well. Not much really needs to be done to this image. Usually I'm doing exposure for the clients, but I'll go ahead and do another mask for the subject so we can dodge them. So if I want to add a little bit of exposure, I want to add a little bit of contrast, I want to add a little bit of texture so they're a little bit sharp. I think their skin color is good. We can add a few whites in here to make them pop. I don't think we'll add a little dehaze in there. Sure, why not? Actually, instead of texture, I'm going to take sharpness up. I like sharpness a little bit better. Take that up to +20, and we can see instantly and mask by mask what each of those look like, which is pretty cool as well. So those two pretty quick things. I'm going to name this mask subject dodge. Right, and this is important for later. I'll show you. And this is we're going to call background burn. Okay. Now, if we wanted to take this a step further and add in a lens flare, or if we wanted to come in and desaturate the shirt, let's start with that. So if we want to desaturate the shirt, what I like to do is to do a subject select first and foremost, because it's only his shirt we want to affect. And then what we want to do is we want to intersect that with a color range. So then I would choose the shirt again. So it's only choosing the color range within that subject select. Now, as you notice, it's selecting multiple areas of the body as well, so we'd have to do another subtraction brush and apply that to the dress and the skin, right? We don't want the dress or the shorts to be affected either, so probably could have just masked in simply the shirt, but I just kind of want to show you what the intersect option does as well. But want to make sure that none of this applies to their skin, and just to make sure we come around here. I don't have auto mask turned on, but that helps as well, so that way we can kind of mask out some of that stuff. But now that we only have, let's make sure none of the arm is being affected. I don't think it is. Now that we have just the shirt going, what I want to do is I want to desaturate it. So drop that saturation, right? Because it has a kind of a blue cast to it. So I want to desaturate it halfway down and drop the highlights down just a little bit. Now, not a huge change, but we can see what it's doing to the shirt, the little things. Then we can come in if we wanted to, and we can apply like a little lens flare. So if we want to do that, what we would do is use the brush tool, kind of make the brush large, and I'd want to make sure the feathering is taken all the way, feather all the way to 100, and I just want to hit a spot. Let's see, just like that. Now I had auto mask on, so let me uncheck that. That's important. Let's go create mask, brush. Before we do that, we click uncheck that. Very important, right? Or else it's just gonna kind of apply across. Now it's gonna apply the mask partly to him and not just the background. So we have to keep in mind that if we want to intersect this, we can do it with the subject. Now it's automatically gonna only apply that to the skin, so we need to uncheck our invert to make sure it's not applying to the subject, which is very important. So now what we can do is we can bring the exposure up, we can add a lot of warmth, we can bring the shadows up, blacks up, and even if we wanted to, we could bring that saturation up there to really kind of amplify this lens flare, which again, it's only applying to the background, it's not applying to him. They already kind of have a good amount of warmth bouncing off of them, so I don't have to do that. But you can see here, right, within these masks, I mean, I spent a little more time on the shirt and the background than needed, but it gives you a pretty simple in Lightroom way to mask your subject and to take your image a step further. So to undo my mask, I mean, this image looks pretty good. Let me go ahead and click done to show you. The image looks pretty good with the profile applied right on the left. But then as I come in with the masking, I mean, it just takes the image to the next level. It looks quite a bit different, again, with a few clicks of the mouse. So that's step number 2. Let's jump on to step number 3, which is syncing masks to multiple images. Be syncing our masks to multiple images in Develop. I know what you're thinking. That's not something you could typically do. Or if you do sync masks, you have to move the pin per image, which kind of defeats the purpose of syncing. Well, not anymore with the AI subject select masks. So what we're going to do is have our original image with the custom profile applied and the masking that we have, the background here, and we're going to select multiple images from this same sequence. So I'm going to go ahead and select these here, and I'm going to hit Shift Command S, and I want to make sure treatment and profile is selected, as well as the 2 subject dodge and background burn masks are selected. That's why I renamed them instead of having mask 1 through 4, which have been kind of confusing, right? So I made sure that only these 2 were selected. Now it's saying that, right, AI powered selections may need to be recomputed on the target photo. So what that means is when we click synchronize, and I'm going to go ahead and click replace. So if you've done a previous mask, it gives you the option to merge, add on to it, or replace it entirely. So I'm going to go image to image and see how these are looking. So I'm going to hold Command after selecting subject dodge. I'm going to hold Command and hit the right arrow, and it keeps me in the masking tool while going to each image. Now the reason why I selected subject dodge is so that way update would automatically show up here. I click update, and it's going to dodge the client, and I need to go down here to background burn. You see the little exclamation point? We click on that, and we click update again, and it's going to burn down the background. Now, of course, these images have some additional adjustments applied to them as well. We could fix later if we wanted to darken these images as well to kind of show the difference between here and here. But you get the gist of what we're applying here. So we're applying the toning neutral, then we go to the next image, and we need to do the same thing. So go ahead and click update. And we need to also do subject update. We're just going image to image, and we're doing the same thing. Update, background burn, update, hold command, right arrow. Now you might have some additional adjustments that you need to make. Of course, these weren't really color corrected to the fullest, so keep in mind we'd still probably want to do that. We go to our last image, update. Now we could, in theory, take all these into, actually have to go back out of the masking tool, hit N. Now that way we can compare all of these images. Now with the first one selected, we could do a match total exposure to get the images a little bit closer, right? And that's going to kind of help to kind of show your last step there, right? If we wanted to make all the exposures the same, we could do that. And then we can go in and dial them in further. If we wanted to apply the sun flare to all the images as well, we could do that and update it, but not all of them had that same sun flare, so it wouldn't really make sense. Maybe only to these first two images. But that shows you immediately how you can apply dodging and burning, custom profiles to multiple images, and these look pretty good. I mean, not too bad for editing one image and then syncing to the rest. Obviously, there's a few other finessing things we'd want to apply to as well, but you kind of get the idea. This is the best way for you to stay out of Photoshop. I mean, I think the custom profiles were a really great way to save Photoshop actions and have them come into Lightroom, as well as your Lightroom presets. You can save out as profiles and have no sliders affected. I think was a huge upgrade in past versions of Lightroom Classic, but the masking tool, being able to sync those AI masks, is just a game changer. I mean, it changes everything with how we edit in Lightroom, and it keeps us working in one program without having to bounce back and forth, right? There's going to be things that we're going to have to, adjust, like taking this final image here in its stage of Photoshop versus Lightroom, of course, with the flyaway hairs and some of the adjustments in dodging and burning, further dodging and burning that I wanted to do in Photoshop. Of course, the image on the left, there are some things that I'm going to want to take care of, but end of the day, it's certainly 90% of my editing is going to be in Lightroom, and it's easy. It's easy to do, as you saw. So outside of that, I mean, we're looking at 3 steps, which is custom profiles, the masking tool, and syncing those masks. Those are the 3 steps to really make creative editing easier. Hope you guys learned something in this tutorial. Tune in next month.